If you don't know Michael Jackson, I genuinely feel sorry for you. MJ was, in my opinion, the godfather of pop and entertainment as a whole. I mean, Thriller, Bad, Billie Jean, Smooth Criminal, PYT, and countless other bangers are in his discography. But there is always something to come and try and ruin a king, because Michael Jackson might be the most investigated celebrity in history. His home was raided by police, his computers were seized, investigators combed through his personal life for years. The FBI even kept files on him. And in 2005, he faced one of the most publicized celebrity trials the world had ever seen. For months, prosecutors presented their case, witnesses testified, the media covered every single detail like it was the trial of the century. Then the jury delivered the verdict: not guilty on all 14 charges. So, if Michael Jackson went through years of investigations and still walked away legally innocent, why is the debate about him still going strong nearly 2 decades later? Some people believe Michael Jackson was a predator who managed to avoid justice. Others believe he was a deeply unusual person whose life and personality made him easy to misunderstand. And in this video, I want to look at the facts behind the accusations, the investigations, and the trial itself, but also something people often overlook: Michael Jackson's childhood. Because when you start looking at how he grew up, the way he behaved as an adult begins to make a lot more sense. Michael Jackson's life story is almost impossible to compare to anybody else's. Most people experience childhood as a time of freedom, a time to make mistakes, play with friends, and slowly figure out who you are. Michael Jackson didn't get that. He was performing professionally before most kids even start elementary school. The Jackson 5 began performing when Michael was just 5 years old, and his father, Joe Jackson, ran the group with strict discipline. Rehearsals were constant, performances were constant, and the pressure to succeed was constant.
Well, I mean, I suppose that everybody has to take responsibility for what they've done in life. And your father is one of those people who also has to take responsibility.
But I do love him.
Yes, I understand.
And I am forgiving.
Yes.
You know, I don't go around.
But can you really forgive? I say this on my show all the time. Can you really forgive if you haven't gotten angry? If you haven't dealt with how you really feel? I don't know if you can go from having been abused to forgiveness.
I do forgive. There's so much garbage and so much trash that's written about me that is so untrue. They're complete lies.
By the time Michael was 10 years old, he was already a global star. That sounds incredible on paper, but it also meant his entire childhood was built around work.
I remember precisely going to Motown Studios to record. Right across the street from the studio was a park. And I could hear the roar of the Little League team, and they were playing soccer and football and volleyball, and they were playing baseball. And I remember a lot of the times looking back and really hiding my face, crying.
Instead of birthday parties and sleepovers, he was traveling between cities and performing in front of thousands of people. In interviews later in life, Michael talked openly about feeling like something had been taken from him. He said that while other kids were playing outside, he was rehearsing for hours every day. And he carried that feeling with him well into adulthood. You can hear it in the way he talks about childhood in interviews. There's this consistent theme where he describes childhood as something magical, something pure, something worth protecting. But there is also this sense that he feels like he missed it. And when someone grows up feeling like they missed out on something that important, it can shape their entire identity. For Michael Jackson, it seems like a huge part of his adult life was spent trying to reconnect with the childhood he never really had. That desire to create childhood joy eventually turned into one of the most famous private homes in the world, Neverland Ranch. When people hear the name Neverland today, they usually think about the accusations that came later. But the original idea behind Neverland was something very different. Michael Jackson wanted to build a place that felt like a real-life version of the world from Peter Pan. A place where childhood imagination never had to end. The property included carnival rides, a train that ran through the ranch, a movie theater, arcades, a zoo, and even an amusement park. And it wasn't just built for Michael himself. Over the years, thousands of children visited Neverland throughout charities, hospitals, and special programs. Kids with serious illnesses, kids from disadvantaged backgrounds, and kids going through difficult situations were invited to spend a day there. For many of them, it was probably one of the most magical experiences of their life. To Michael Jackson, Neverland represented something deeply personal. It was his attempt to build the kind of childhood environment he always dreamed about but never had. Whether people see that as generous, strange, or suspicious often depends on how they interpret everything else about his life. But it's impossible to talk about Michael Jackson without understanding how important that idea of childhood wonder was to him. In 1993, Michael Jackson's life took a dramatic turn. That year, a 13-year-old boy named Jordan Chandler accused him of sexual abuse. The accusation instantly became one of the biggest celebrity scandals of the decade. Police launched a major investigation involving multiple law enforcement agencies. Jackson denied the allegations and his legal team fought the case aggressively. But instead of going to a criminal trial, the situation took a different path. The civil lawsuit filed by the Chandler family was settled out of court for an amount reported to be around $23 million. That settlement became one of the most controversial aspects of the entire case. Critics argued that paying a settlement made Jackson look guilty. Supporters argued that settlements are common in civil cases and are often used to avoid long legal battles that can drag on for years. Another important detail often gets overlooked. Even after the civil settlement, the criminal investigation continued. But prosecutors ultimately decided that they did not have enough evidence to move forward criminal charges. That meant that there was never a criminal trial where a jury evaluated the evidence in the Chandler case. So while the accusations were extremely serious, they were never tested in a courtroom the way the later cases would be. Ten years later, Michael Jackson faced something even more serious. In 2003, a new set of accusations emerged involving a boy named Gavin Arvizo. These allegations eventually led to Michael Jackson being charged with multiple criminal counts, including child molestation. Unlike the earlier accusations in the 1990s, this case went all the way to trial, and it became one of the most watched celebrity trials in history. The trial lasted nearly 4 months. Prosecutors brought forward witnesses, investigators, and members of the Arvizo family to explain their accusations. Jackson's defense team responded by challenging the credibility of those claims and presenting their own witnesses. One of the most notable defense witnesses was actor Macaulay Culkin. Culkin had spent time around Michael Jackson as a child and even slept at Neverland during visits. Under oath, Culkin told the court that Jackson had never behaved inappropriately with him. Other witnesses made similar statements. The jury spent months hearing both sides of the case, and when deliberations were finished, the verdict was announced in June 2005. Michael Jackson was found not guilty on every single charge. 14 counts across the board, it was complete acquittal. For Jackson supporters, that verdict confirmed what they had been believing all along, that the accusations had been exaggerated or they were false. But for critics, the debate didn't end there. Even many people who defend Michael Jackson admit something important. Some of his behavior looked unusual. Jackson openly acknowledged that children sometimes slept in his bedroom during visits to Neverland. To many adults, that raises immediate red flags. Jackson insisted that these sleepovers were innocent and that he often slept on the floor while guests slept in the bed. He described it as sharing a space in a non-sexual way, almost like a large sleepover environment. But the reality is that most adults simply don't interact with children that way. And because Michael Jackson was already one of the most famous people on the planet, everything he did was magnified under a microscope. Actions that might have been seen as eccentric or unusual in private suddenly became international headlines. That tension between his intentions and public perception is a big reason why the controversy around him has never completely disappeared. Many people who work closely with Michael Jackson described him in the same way. They said he had an almost childlike personality. Not childish in a negative sense, but genuinely fascinated by things that reminded him of childhood. Amusement parks, toys, movies, magic tricks, things most adults gradually leave behind. For Jackson, those things seem to remain a central part of his world. Some psychologists have suggested that people who grow up in extreme circumstances, especially child stars, sometimes experience a kind of emotional delay. They miss key developmental experiences because their childhood is replaced with fame, work, and public scrutiny. Whether that explanation fully applies to Michael Jackson is still debated, but it does provide one possible lens for understanding his behavior. Instead of viewing him as someone trying to manipulate children, supporters often view him as someone trying to protect and recreate childhood innocence. Someone who never stopped chasing the part of life he felt was taken from him. Michael Jackson's life will probably always be surrounded by controversy. He was one of the most famous people who ever lived, and that level of fame brings constant scrutiny. But when you look at the legal history of the accusations against him, one fact stands out. The only criminal trial he ever faced ended with a jury finding him not guilty on every single charge. That doesn't mean everyone will agree about what happened, but it does mean the story of Michael Jackson is far more complicated than the headlines often suggest. Was he a criminal who escaped justice? Or was he a deeply unusual person whose life, personality, and fame created one of the most misunderstood stories in entertainment history? That debate is still happening today. But that's all I got for this. If you like this video, leave a thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and comment down below if you want to see anything else from me. I'm still trying to hit 75 subs by April, so it would mean a lot if you do subscribe. And I appreciate you guys joining me on this journey, and I'll see you in the next one.